I've done it. This is my M4 11-inch iPad Pro, and that is iPadOS 18. And yes, I've got lots of thoughts. I'm a big fan of WWDC these days because they throw everything at us really quickly. So all of the new operating system updates and the new services and new features, bang, here it is. It's a really slick operation. The problem with that is that we have all that stuff presented in June, and then we have a massive gap between June and September, October, in macOS's case, sometimes December even, to actually get our hands on that stuff and use it, unless you get involved in the beta testing. Now, I don't normally do this. If you watch this channel regularly, you'll know that I don't do beta software content. It just scares me to death. The problem with that is that big gap between WWDC and the operating system releases means I forget most of the stuff that was launched and announced at WWDC. So this year I thought, no, let's throw caution to the wind again and install iPadOS 18 beta, the public beta, on my main iPad, which is the M4 11-inch iPad Pro. And, well, there's a few things I want to talk about. Before we get to the new stuff, just very quickly an update on my switch to the 11-inch iPad Pro. So if you've not been following my iPad journey this year, basically I bought the 13-inch M4 iPad Pro, and then Apple sent me a review unit of the 11-inch version, and I just fell in love with it straight away. And that's because this one has the exact same display technology as the big one, but it's more portable. And this does sound a bit strange. It's more iPad sized. So just that's an iPad. The 13-inch is a huge slab of a thing which feels more like a, let's be honest, laptop. This doesn't. This is a proper tablet, which is the whole point of the iPad really, but it can double as a laptop if you combine it with something as great as this Logitech Combo Touch. I reviewed this recently. I'll put a link above so you can check that out. But you came here for my thoughts on iPadOS 18. So let's get into it. Let's start with handwriting, and as you can see, my handwriting is absolutely atrocious. It's been called doctor's handwriting in the past, which I think is a little bit unfair on doctors. I've seen doctors' handwriting, and trust me, I can read it. I can't read my own handwriting most of the time. So when I heard about SmartScript and I saw the demo of it on WWDC, I got very, very excited. And if you don't know what SmartScript is, it's this feature in iPadOS 18 where it learns how you write, and then it uses machine learning to basically tidy up your handwriting, so it makes it a bit straighter, and it does this in real time as you write. So as you write something down in your handwriting, obviously it goes along and it doesn't completely change it, it just smooths it out a little bit and it straightens it. Like I say, it just makes it look more legible. It's still your handwriting, but it's better, and it works pretty well. I've had a few issues where it's got the wrong letter, so it's taken a B and turned it into an L or something, and tiny little things like that, but they're quite few and far between. And again, this is a beta thing. This, iPadOS 18 is still in beta form. We have to remember that with all this stuff. There are a few things that don't seem to work in the beta at the moment, so you're supposed to be able to scratch out handwriting. So basically, if I've written that, but I don't want it to be there, in theory, you're supposed to be able to go, oh, this is a deleted note. Of course it is. Let's recover it. Basically, if I'm not happy with this line here, if I do that, it's supposed to delete it. It doesn't work. Also, one of the other features is that you can take copied typed text, so let's say text from a website, and then paste it into your note in your handwriting, which is pretty cool. The only problem with it is that it's really, really fiddly. The idea is that you press and hold the pencil where you want to paste that text into, but it just doesn't seem to work every single time, and equally, when it does, it sometimes pastes that text into a completely different style of handwriting, just a completely random form of handwriting. Again, it's a beta. I can look past that for now. SmartScript it's a brilliant feature, and I think it's going to make me a little bit more satisfied about writing things with my hand. It's going to make handwriting stuff more enjoyable, and that's a good thing. Now, the other thing to mention at this point is that this video is sponsored by Paperlike, and that's completely related to this because basically, if you've got an iPad of any kind, because Paperlike works with all iPads, if you use an Apple Pencil on an iPad, get one of these. There's two reasons for this. The first one is that Paperlike is a screen protector, which means it protects that very expensive iPad display. And secondly, when you put it onto the display, it makes it feel like paper. as the name suggests. And it's impossible to get this across on a video, but trust me, I've been using this for the last few years, and I don't have an iPad that doesn't have a Paperlike attached to it because it's uncanny. It feels like paper, it sounds like paper, and it makes the process of taking notes or drawing or doing anything creative really with a pencil on your iPad much, much more satisfying. And if you're wondering, it doesn't dull the colours, so a lot of the iPad screen protectors I've tried in the past, they just make the display look a bit rubbish. It dulls the colours, the contrast seems to disappear. The latest Paperlike does not do that. And if you're worried about applying the Paperlike to your very expensive iPad, don't be, because I can do it. And trust me, I'm the worst example of someone for putting on screen protectors onto tech. I've never screwed it up. What's more, they do other stuff. They do a pencil grip, which goes around your Apple Pencil and makes it much easier to grip. And we have a screen cleaner, which is one of the most innovative screen cleaners I've ever used. Go and check out that link in the description. Feature number 2 in my list of favourite things in iPadOS 18 is the Calculator app. And no, I can't make that much about this, and no, you can't get that excited about it, and yes, it should have been here a long, long time ago, but at least it is here now. And that means no searching around on the App Store for ad-infested third-party calculator apps. I've always had to do that. I've always ended up installing a bloated third-party calculator app, and it's always really annoying. I've done that for years and years and years, and now we have a native one, and it works. You know, if I, for example, put in a massive number, big random number, add that to it, times it by that, divide that by that, and then divide that by that, and then add that on, and then times that, we get an answer immediately. We also have something called maths notes, which is for some reason hard to say. I don't know how to use this because I'm stupid, but if you're smart, if you're the sort of person who can do equations that are more involved than this one, it is admittedly amazing. The idea is that you basically put numbers in, put equations in, put variables in with your pencil, and SmartScript works in here, by the way. If you start writing stuff, the SmartScript thing does, you know, it kind of tidies up your writing. And as soon as you put an equals sign, it puts the answer onto this sheet, which again, if you're smart enough, if you're doing a maths degree, or you know, you go to maths classes where you do this stuff, or it's your job to do these very complicated sums, happy days. Feature number 3 that I've been enjoying is customization. Watch this. I can take this app, he says, and I can move it around and leave it down there. Or I can leave it, that's a terrible example. Let's take this great big widget here. I can take it and move it all the way down, which means it's not being governed by a very strict grid. Well, it is. The grid is still there, to be fair. There's still a grid. You can't place them over the top of each other, but you're no longer bound by the jiggle mode, you know, very strict thing that has always been in place on iPadOS and iOS. Apple, in a very Apple fashion, said that this is because you can now frame your widgets and your apps around your background, you know, your desktop wallpaper, that's an old phrase, around your wallpaper. And they've also done the same with tinting, so we can tint the app icons and also the widgets. In fact, any color you want. Now, the problem with that is that it's very, very easy to make your iPad home screen look an absolute mess. I've seen some horrendous examples of this. There's 2 great examples of how this works. So that one of them is the dark mode. So you can basically add a dark tint to all of the icons, and that looks very cool. That looks very sophisticated, and it works very well regardless of the background that you're using. If, however, you have a background like this, there's an option to let iPadOS choose the tint based on the color profile, you know, the overall color of the background image you're using, you know, your wallpaper. And in this case, as you can see, it works very well. I think, I mean, you may disagree. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I think this looks very nice. And again, it's just being able to customize it. It's not being bound by Apple's rigid stance on how things should work. You know, they're giving us very slowly more control over the look and feel of iPadOS and iOS as well. And that can only be a good thing. Feature number 4 is the control center, which I wasn't sure about this when they showed it at WWDC. I just thought, do we really need multiple control centers? Surely not. Well, actually, it does make sense when you start to use it. Basically, we have the regular control center, which has your everything we're used to, you know, media controls, it's got the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, you know, switches, volume, brightness, etc. But if we scroll up, we can keep going through different separate control centers. So, there's one for music, there's one for home, there's one for all of your connections, and all of these can be changed. So you can move the controls around, you can add new controls in, you can resize the controls as well if you want to, and you can add multiple pages as well. But one of the other interesting things about this, from my perspective, is that this feels very, very widgety. Apple has this history with widgets where they've built them into macOS, into the iPad, onto the iPhone, even the Apple Watch. And I'd love to know from you, if you still use widgets on any of those platforms, let me know in the comments what you do with them. For me personally, I kind of play with them to begin with and then just forget they exist. These widgets, and they're not called widgets, you know, Apple calls them controls. That's what Apple calls them. They feel, like I say, very, what have I done? Turn the brightness down. And I think this is the way to do widgets, even though Apple doesn't call them widgets. So, sorry, Tim, but yeah, I like the new widget feature. Feature number 5 on my favourite things about iPadOS 18, I can't show you because it's Apple Intelligence, AI, as they've somehow masterfully stolen from everyone else. Apple Intelligence is it's Apple's take on AI, and it's a brand new version of Siri, and it looked incredibly impressive during WWDC. However, that was just, within the confines of a very controlled Apple demonstration. We haven't seen it out in the public yet, and that is the point really, that if you fancy getting into iPadOS 18 and you're expecting to install this and then get access to Apple Intelligence, a new version of Siri that actually works, etc., you're going to be disappointed because it's not in here at the moment. It's not in any of the operating systems that are in beta. All of that aside, I can't wait to get my hands on that. It's something which I think is going to really, really immerse me even further in the iPad, and that is why that is my 5th thing. But although I've not played with it, I can't wait to get my hands on later this year. Now, yes, there are some other things that I haven't talked about. Photos has had a massive update. Promise I'll dig into that later this year. Also, we've got the Passwords app, which is overdue, I think, and it's pretty good. Quite simple, to be honest. It's also very difficult to demonstrate because I don't want to show you my passwords. And we also have changes to messages, which I can't get excited about. I don't use messages at all, really. I live in the UK, which means I use WhatsApp. I'd love to know, guys, if you've installed the beta of iPadOS 18, either the public one or the developer version, let me know what your favourite features are down below. And if you want to find out more about my switch to the 11-inch iPad Pro from the big one, keep watching for a link to a video where I explain exactly why I did that and why I love this iPad so much.